Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, debt slicers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. Welcome. I'm a useful idiot, and today we're going to talk about Ukraine again. But this story is a little different. This is more akin into the bizarre world that we live in, where things like money is debt and debt is money, and broke banks propping up broke governments, propping up broke banks, propping up broke governments. We have all these strange, bizarre arrangements all around the globe that somehow make this crazy machine work. And this is just another example of that, in my view. And basically what it is this concept called reverse flow delivery, unquote. And in this case, it's a plan that Ukraine has been working on for the last several years and is partially implemented, where their plan to wean themselves off to the dependence on Russian natural gas and Gazprom is to buy Russian natural gas, just not from Gazprom. And so this is the kind of world we live in. And so let me tell you more about the particular story, and then I'll get into a little analysis. So we have a pipeline that goes all the way from Siberia to Slovakia, 3,000 miles, $20 billion a year worth of natural gas pipe through the system. And of course it supplies a good portion of the Eurozone, most notably places like Germany and Slovakia. And so in order to decrease dependence on Russia and Gazprom, for the last several years, Ukraine has been pushing for what's called, quote, reverse flow delivery, unquote, where the gas goes from Russia to Europe and then from Europe back to the Ukraine. And one reason why this system works is because of the euro prices are much lower than direct sales from Russia to Ukraine. And to give you examples, when Yanukovych was president of Ukraine, the price of natural gas was $268 per cubic unit. And now it's gone up 80% to $485 per cubic unit. And that is because when the Ukraine so-called revolution happened, Russia removed its subsidy. And so there's two arguments. One is that it's economic warfare against Ukraine, which is true, but it's also a legitimate claim that if Ukraine wants to go to the West, then they lose their favoritism in their gas prices. So anyway, in the Eurozone, they can get natural gas for $385 a cubic unit. So they save about 25%. So Slovakia and Ukraine have already started this program, as well as Hungary and Poland. But apparently Slovakia is the only one that has the capacity to really supply large amounts of natural gas back to Ukraine through this reverse flow delivery program. But so far this system has not ramped up, and there's a lot of speculation as for the reasons. One obvious one, of course, is Slovakia gets 60% of their own natural gas from Russia, and they don't want to jeopardize their own supplies. And then we also find out that the Slovakian government has elements that are very pro-Moscow, even at this point in time. And then also the Slovakia itself pointed out that they have secret contracts with Gazprom. And so they probably have specific arrangements with Gazprom that address this certain issue of reverse flow delivery. And it also might be that Gazprom may even own the Slovakian energy company itself, or it may be owned, majority owned by Russian interests. So that would certainly complicate things. And then we have massive corruption in the Ukraine energy sector, and probably the Slovakian energy sector as well, so they have to deal with that as well. But anyway, apparently one reason why the system works is because once the gas is sold, Gazprom is no longer owner and cannot get involved in the terms. But that said, once again, if you have this reverse flow delivery system, and Russia and or Gazprom partially owns the Slovakian energy company, then they certainly could throw a wrench into the works. And Russia denies using gas as a political weapon, and just like the United States, whenever they say they don't do something, it means they do. So Russia denies using gas as a political weapon, and therefore is using gas as a political weapon. And just like the example I used before, there's two ways to look at it, and they're both correct. One is that it is a political weapon. Using economics and gas is a political weapon, and the United States is certainly more than familiar with these tactics itself. And the other part of this is that Russia has legitimate claims for the actions it takes, because in this case they say all that the Ukraine needs to do to secure a stable supply at a reasonable price for natural gas is to pay its bills on time and clear its debt of $3.5 billion. And once again, if the Ukraine is going to move to the West and try and cut its ties with Russia to a certain degree, then they need to pay their bills on time and not have a massive backdate of owed money. So that said, first of all, we have to completely appreciate what this shows that I've brought up in lots of videos, and that's just the complexity of relationships between all these different countries. And this clearly shows the complexities of trying to create effective sanctions when most of Europe depends on Russian natural gas, and Ukraine certainly depends on Russian natural gas, and Russia wants to keep it flowing and keep making money, and everybody wins. So underneath all the saber rattling and all the talk of war and confrontations, we have a very interdependent group of nations who are not going to tamper with things like, overall, they're not going to tamper with natural gas because everybody wants to make their money, and everybody wants to keep their populations under control. And another aspect of this that's interesting as well is that, as Bert Powers always points out, and I certainly agree, you follow the money, and that's where you find out what's really going on. And this is a good example of that. Here's a story where you follow the money and you get to some real hard geopolitical truths that all the Cold War drama that's going on the surface masks a machine that's still running well and serving its masters. And then last but not least, let's all just have a little chuckle about the idea that Ukraine wants to wean themselves off their dependence on Russian natural gas by buying Russian natural gas. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?